Starting to home educate can be effortless and easy when you do it right. But if you get it wrong, schools and local authorities can make your life hell, causing you stress and even accusing you of being neglectful of your children. Over the past 30 years, I've helped dozens of other parents get going with home education and do it in a way that's easy, so that they can enjoy it and their kids can start to learn in ways that work for them. I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to take your kids out of school to start learning at home without it being stressful and without falling foul of the law. If you find this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, you might want to do that too. Before we get into how to get your kids out of school, it's important to understand the legal requirements for your kids' education. When you don't understand the law, schools often refuse to let you take them out of school, involve the local authorities, or try to discourage you by claiming home education is harmful or even illegal. But in the UK and in the US, home education is perfectly legal. There are some countries where it's not allowed, and in the US, the rules and regulations vary state to state, so make sure you check locally. Here in England, the law is really simple and clear. The legal requirement under Section 7 of the Education Act 1996 is that children receive a full-time education at school or otherwise. Their education has to be suitable to their age, ability, aptitude, and any special educational needs. It's actually you as a parent who are responsible for ensuring that your child's properly educated, and whether you choose to do that through the school system or in any other way is up to you, because home education has equal legal status to school education. What this boils down to is that education is compulsory, but school is not. So how do you actually get started with home education? The school system is like those forms you get online, where sometimes you have to tick a box to opt into receiving marketing emails, whereas sometimes you have to opt out of receiving them. School is an opt-in system. You're not automatically in the school system. If you didn't ever register at school and you didn't opt in, you don't need to do anything to start home educating. But most parents, when their kids are around 4 years old, register for school and opt into the school system. And just like you can unsubscribe and opt out of marketing emails whenever you like, you can also opt out of school. The process of opting out of school is called the deregistration process. But when you deregister from school, you need to do it in a very specific way. If you don't do it in that way, you can find yourself locked into ongoing arguments with your school, or being told you need to get permission before being allowed to home educate. But unless your child's at a special school or subject to a school attendance order, you don't have to seek permission to home educate. To deregister from school, you simply write a letter to the head teacher. The first thing the letter absolutely needs to say is that you've made a decision to home educate and request that your child be removed or deleted from the school roll. You want to be very clear and definitive about it, and can reference the relevant legislation that we talked about before. Where this gets murky, and I think this is what creates a lot of problems for people, is that the government's guidance makes a distinction between parents considering home education, which they call an intention to home educate, versus having made a decision to home educate. So if your letter said that you were intending to home educate, your school might not take your child off the school roll. So to avoid any misunderstanding, your letter should specifically include a reference to your decision to home educate or having decided to home educate. If you'd like a template letter, I'll put one in the description down below for you. In the letter, you should also specify the date that your child should be removed from the school register. It's up to you whether you give your school advance notice or not. You could ask them to delete your child from the school roll effective immediately, or you could ask them to do it at the end of the term, for instance. Often it's better not to give advance notice, as this could make teachers think that your decision isn't a firm and final decision, which can sometimes lead to the school trying to intervene with your decision, talking to your child about it without your consent and trying to put you off the idea, or even making claims that aren't true. They might tell you that background checks need to be performed, or that you need to seek permission from the local authority, or tell you that they need permission before they can deregister them. I've heard all of these things and more. If they give you any inaccurate information, it will most usually be due to misunderstanding home education itself or misunderstanding the deregistration process rather than anything more malicious. You should remember that school staff aren't well versed in how to respond to a notice of deregistration. It doesn't happen much. Even though home education is becoming much more common these days, some parents still experience difficulty. So if you do need help, you can book a call with me via the link in the description below. Once you have your letter written, what's the best way to send it to the school? I've heard of parents getting into trouble because their school claimed they never received the deregistration letter. I'm sure that could be true some of the time, things occasionally get lost in the mail. More likely, I think, is that it's actually because the deregistration letter wasn't written properly and the school thought that the parent was just considering home education. So make sure your letter's properly worded as a decision letter. Again, the template's down below for you. The best way to avoid schools claiming they haven't received the letter is to take a two-pronged approach. First, send the letter by recorded mail so that you have a record of it being delivered. Second, email it for speed. Of course, you'll also have a record of it being sent through email. You can also deliver it by hand, but if you do that, you won't have a record of it being sent or delivered. So if you do that, I would at least do one of the other two options as well. Once you've sent your deregistration letter, you're done. You're a home educator, and now you're going to need to start educating your kids. If you're like most parents, you might assume that that means sitting at the kitchen table with worksheets all around you, teaching your kids. But you've got to resist that urge because it's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. I see too many parents rush out to buy curricula or workbooks for maths and English and science. Of course, it's a natural instinct to want to set things up and get everything ready. But if you start by setting up a homeschool classroom and writing your daily timetables, you're just replicating school at home. And when you start recreating school at home, you'll also end up recreating the issues and the stresses that made you want to leave school in the first place. But now, it's not school causing the stress, it's you. Because ultimately, your kids don't want you to be their teacher. They want you to be their loving, caring parent. If you turn into their teacher, it can end up causing arguments and stress and creating distance between you and your kids. They get annoyed with you for telling them what to do all the time. You'll end up getting upset that your kids aren't learning or aren't listening to you. And if you start losing your patience or having arguments, it only pushes your kids away from wanting to learn and away from you. That's why being patient is one of the most important things that I help parents with. If you want home education to go really well, instead of turning your home into a school, the first thing you need to do is get all of the school-like ideas of what learning and education looks like out of your system. It's a process known as deschooling, so you should watch this video next to learn about that. And if you want the deregistration letter, the link to that's down below. If you've gotten value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, it'd be great if you did that too. It really helps my channel reach more people.